No, I'll be okay. I'll get through it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start. Okay, so can we have everyone take their positions?
Are you hooked in, sir? I am plugged up. Do you not see it? See you. You're plugged up. Yeah.
We'll be starting shortly.
I am plugged up. Tell me, do you have another USB-C to HDMI? Maybe it's that. I did. Someone walked off with it. Let me make sure that I'm detecting you.
Try that.
Yeah, we'll just pivot.
Pivot to this.
Should it show up automatically here?
Yeah, it shouldn't take long.
No. I'm seeing something.
Seeing something? It should pop up. Let's try this.
1 second.
It's getting the. Let's try this.
You taint my cable?
No, I got to change. There we go. You're up.
I'm up.
Behind you, you're all set.
All
You
right.
just got to take the camera out of the equation.
Okay. No worries. So what cameras are working live and which ones are not?
Huh?
Which cameras are?
That one and that one. That one is no longer working.
That one's out. Okay. Cool. All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start. Please take your seats, and can we have everyone get quiet, please? Thank you.
Hey, take your seats and be quiet. I have a new hero. Is this mic live?
Yeah, that mic's live. Oh, sorry.
Did you kill my screen?
Pull it up. You can pull, if you're going to sit and talk, it'll be right there.
I'll do
Just like
both.
Baddeley did.
All right, everybody ready?
Hey!
All right, so first off, I'm here to talk about the Tex-Mex frame and leg system that I build and design and sell out on the Astromech site. So first off, kind of give a little agenda what all I'm going to cover. I'll talk about the history of the design, some stats about what's out there, the principles that went into the design itself, some of the different versions and flavors of the Tex-Mex that's gone out there, and then a couple of the other things that I've started offering out on astromech.net.
Hey, we can hear you on the stream back there. Quiet. Thank
All right. So first off, kind of talk about who am I. My name is Eric Beeks. My screen name out on Astromech is HDTheater. I've been a builder since 2009, based out of Dallas, Texas, and I started my droid building journey back then when with a screen name like HDTheater, my whole thing was I was building home theaters. That was what I liked to do. I loved, the whole. This was before every house in America had a home theater in it. And I met a guy on the AVS forum, if anybody's ever been on that website, that had an R2D2, and I was like, hey, how do I do that? And he pointed me over to the Yahoo groups that existed at the time, and the astromech.net website was just launching around that time, and I've been there ever since. I don't even own a stereo anymore, let alone a home theater. So my whole life now is just focused on, building things in my shop and different things that, people ask me to do for them. So that's my background. That's how I got into droid building overall. A little bit about the history of, not too far. A little bit about the history of Tex-Mex. So it started out with myself, builders Jamie McShann and Gustavo Canales from Mexico, which is where I'm from Texas. Jamie lives in Austin. Gustavo lives in Mexico. So that's where the name Tex-Mex comes from. So Jamie and I had both built droids already at this time and met Gustavo through multiple cons and stuff. And we just kind of started talking about, all the pain of what it was in building a droid and just all the damn things we had to fight. And it's like, certainly maybe we can do something a little bit better, a little bit more streamlined the way we thought and approached droid building. So Gustavo is an engineer. He's very good with CAD. So we also started talking about how we could design and build a better mousetrap, if you will. And Tex-Mex was born out of all of those conversations. A couple of stats on Tex-Mex itself. We have both CSL and CSR frames. So if any old builders in here have a whole cache of CSL parts that they don't know what they're going to do with, I can help you out. Right now, there's about 150 CSR frames in use and about 15 of the CSL ones. So CSL has definitely kind of died off. I don't even really make them. So if you ever wanted one, it would have to be a special made to order to make that happen. The frame itself is made out of Baltic birch plywood, some MDF parts, and then we mix in some 3D printed stuff. So one of the conversations I had the other night, somebody, doesn't know a lot about woodworking or plywoods and stuff. And it's like, why Baltic birch? What is so special about it? I see it mentioned all the time. And Baltic birch is a material that we choose because there are no voids in any of the layers of the plywood that's there. If you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any other big box store like Menards, the plywood is very light. If you look at the layers that are there, the outer layer is paper thin. And if you peel that layer off, you will find gaps and voids and holes and all kinds of problems in there. And it is not very structural. So I can easily snap plywood in my hands from Home Depot and I can hurt my knee trying to break Baltic birch over to break it up and throw it in my fire pit. So that's why Baltic birch is the material of choice, because it is a very strong, very well structurally sound plywood medium to use. And when you take 2 layers of 1/2 inch and glue them together into a 1 inch piece, it is very, very strong. Anybody who's ever done it will know what I'm talking about. Some of the other things that we like to do in the design wasn't at the time, 3D printing was catching on more and more as a medium to use. So instead of having structures that were made out of wood, we started making mounts for things made out of, using 3D printed designs, things that you could kind of put in your hands as far as the builders to be able to print using your own printers and help keep the costs down overall. And then things like the skin mounted utility arm holders are really much easier to mount a utility arm to the skin than try to mount it to a frame and then align everything up and make sure you've got clearance without having to go buy a whole bunch of washers to make that happen. Some of the design goals. So lower cost of building a droid. At the time when Tex-Mex there was very few options. And one of the things, just to kind of get off script for a second, is just being here this week, this weekend, and just listening to all the different ones. It's a great time to be a droid builder, man. I mean, back in 2009, we had the end of the Jag frame, the beginning of the Com-8 frame. We had the Sena plywood frame and A&A, and that was it. That was all we had to really choose from. And now I've watched, we watched Kevin's presentation. We saw Malcolm's presentation yesterday. We've got Mr. Baddeley with us now with all of his wonderful designs. So there's so many different options that are out there. But at the time, things were very expensive. And, for me, there were a lot of things that I could do and try to bring in the overall, amount of materials that we had to use to build a frame and leg kit out of. We brought that down, not using as much wood, so it could cost a little bit less. And then now, especially during the COVID years, I really got very efficient in how I used the plywood. The first time I was making it, I was using a full 5 foot by 5 foot sheet of plywood to make a whole frame and leg kit. And now I've got it all down in nested parts and found little shortcuts to use. That a couple of the other things I do like the Jarrett kits and other things. I started nesting parts for those projects in here so I can share the cost of the R2 kits with those. So it helps everybody out there. So when COVID hit, I did have to raise my prices a little bit, but nowhere near as much as it could have been, because the cost of materials doubled during that time, and in some cases it still hasn't come back. So I talked about the integrating mounting mechanisms into the design. So with things like the holes on the side plate, so you can get a perfect mount for your legs every time. They wouldn't sway or shift. You don't really need to go buy any specialty hardware for this. You can put the whole kit together with glue and a couple of wood screws. And then when it comes time to start mounting all of the other pieces to that, you don't need anything really special to do it. You know, a little tube of silicone goes a very long way to get all the parts and such in there. And there's a lot of time that's spent going back and forth trying to find the right thing in the hardware store and talking to the guy in there and says, well, what are you building? You don't want to know. Just you're not going to help. You don't know. You're not going to be able to help me do anything. Other things that we took into account was I found, and I haven't built a lot of the different ones that are out there, but you kind of get locked into an ecosystem, you know, with the way things go together. And there were certain things, even though we have club specs, there are certain parts that were not club spec. Like, how does this leg go to this body? And that isn't club spec. You have the exterior, so it's like the bolt pattern for, let's say, a Com8 leg was not the same as an A&A leg, not the same as a Senna leg at the time. So we tried to mimic what other builders were using, and I haven't checked it, but I do believe like the Michael Baddeley legs are same bolt pattern as well. I know that somebody has bolted it up. I didn't know if they had to do any real modifications to make that happen. And then other mounting mechanisms, like my first R2, I had a set of MDF foot shells, and then when I finally switched out to some steel ones after I crushed them into a million pieces, and I started, it's like, well, now I'm going to upgrade to some good metal, and I started trying to like, well, where do I stop? Because the old ones, I had a lot of custom pieces on there that were glued on and made that happen. And then when I was moving to a different, system, it was like, well, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work. And I kept trying to figure out, where do I draw the line and say, I can't keep upgrading all the way up. I've got to stop. So we wanted to make sure that it was easy to swap. You could do a Tex-Mex frame with Com8 legs or some other legs, and you didn't get married into an ecosystem that you were stuck with it. Also, embrace all materials. So we wanted to make sure it was compatible with everything out there, from aluminum to steel, 3D printed parts. We use I'm a big proponent. If anybody, I don't know where Greg Tracy is. I'm sure he's out in the audience somewhere. There he is. The other message I always want to push on my presentation is the Fusion 360 project files that are out on the Astromech wiki. Greg and forget the other gentleman that worked with him designed all of these Greeblies that are out there with the Fusion 360 file that's there that allows you to take them apart and do it the way you want to do it. And I'm push them all the time to all the guys that have bought a Tex-Mex frame. That's what I like to use. And, because you can start integrating different ways to do that. So with all the other file builders that are out there, to try and make sure that they integrate with all of that, really push on the Baddeley domes. My recommended skirt is his skirt. If you want to print one out, there's actually a template out there to his bolt pattern. To just drill the holes in the bottom of my frame and bolt the thing right up to it. And it's great. So overall, kind of closing out on the goals, we want to make sure it was strong, make sure it was cheap, and you could get into a droid relatively easily there. Next one, kind of talk about a little bit more of the design itself. So where does all the strength of it come in? there, and I've got a frame here in the back if anybody wants to take a look at it later, but there's essentially the strength of a Tex-Mex frame comes from an interior box that's built into it. There are 2 half-inch uprights on both sides that glue together to a 1-inch upright, and then across the top and the bottom are 2 1-inch cross members on both sides of the uprights to make sure that you have a nice strong box that holds it all together nice and solid. And by keeping all of the strength there, there's only 4 uprights around the skins that are even needed. So you can have a lot more room in there for servos and other parts and different things. And one of the add-ons that we've changed since I did this presentation 2 years ago at DroidCon, some of the feedback I got was just when it came to integrating servos is that when you started getting in there, and didn't have enough meat on the uprights to hold all that stuff together. So I made them a little bit bigger. So if you had to Dremel something out to make your design fit, then there's still enough meat in there for the strength that comes in with that. But by taking all of that stuff out of there, cleaned out a whole lot of room from the designs that were available for more parts, more electronics, different gadgets, and then obviously bigger batteries. You can see next thing, kind of getting into the design, some of the things that we built into it, again, trying to keep the cost down. It's got integrated slip ring mounts built into it. There's the side plates on the frame have holes in it to mount speakers, so you can blast your R2 sounds out the side. The cross member across the bottom for the center leg mount, so you don't need to go buy any special hardware for that. And then the utility arm mounts had integrated mounts for the servo, so you could cut a lot of the individual pieces that you needed in the servos and the mounts and the gears. You can eliminate a lot of the hardware in there to make it a lot more simplified. And now for like the utility arms, it's just a very large gear mounted on the servo without any need for any servo horns or anything. And it just goes to a specialized gear that goes into the utility arm as the pivot point, and it'll just run it there. So you don't have a lot of linkages or anything to mess with. The other pieces, fixed mount for the legs. One of the issues we had at the time was that your legs would start to sway around a little bit if you didn't have them locked in nice and tight. So eliminated that. And there's also a fixed mount for a 2-legged and 3-legged versions. Also, one of the things I get a lot of feedback about a rear door with aluminum skins. You don't need a rear door, so they're very rigid already. And you can just use a couple of rare earth magnets to hold that back door onto the back, pop it off. And I mean, I've been running my Droid now since 2011 completed, and I've never had any issues with it. One of the things I have noticed with the current run of the skins is there's no longer a lip at the top of the back door that's there. So when you put it in there, it tends to want to kind of flatten into there. So now we've got a block that just kind of mounts up to the bottom plate to hold the curvature of the skins in place as well. Some of the other things, when you get a Tex-Mex system, we've got a repository of all of the files that we use for this. So you can download the pieces for the utility arms, center vent mounts, the back panel mounts. We've got some motor mounts out there as well that other builders have used. I think Hunter somewhere in here, he's designed one as well that goes in there for a different motor system that I hadn't used before. So we with the community that's there, we've got other builders that have come in with some of their own integrations that are available, and we just maintain a file repository for people who have already gotten a Tex-Mex. I've got a Facebook group that just for Tex-Mex builders to help each other. If I'm not available, if anybody has any questions about how to get through and build your droid, in addition to all the other content that's out there on Astromech and the R2 forums themselves, the Facebook group. So one of the other things I've done, I don't know how many guys who spend time sitting at a booth in a con, somebody comes up and says, how much for a droid? And we say, we don't sell them, we build them. We'll enable you to build your own. And they're like, well, I don't want it to do all this stuff. I just want it to be cool and just sit there. So, and if you go back, that's how I started. I just wanted a droid to sit in my home theater to look cool. I didn't want all this RC crap and, you know, all those headaches that come along with that. So when I was playing around with it, I was like, you know, I'd like to do what really got me going is when Disney opened up Galaxy's Edge and you saw all these two-legged droids all over the airports and all the different places promoting Galaxy's Edge. And they're just so many different colors and schemes. I was like, I just went nuts for all of that. I was like, how do I want every one of these. Well, that's expensive as hell, as you all know, to try and build that many droids. But if you think about the guy that comes to your booth and just says, I just want one to look cool in my Star Wars collection. I don't have any intention of coming out to cons and doing all this RC stuff. So I said, well, how hard would it be to just do a simple two-legged static droid? So one of the ideas I had is I took a 3D file for the foot shells and put a hole in the center of the channel, changed the leg design to where it go right down through there. And originally the idea is that it would mount to some kind of a display base or something to kind of keep it stable, but it's stable enough as it stands. You don't need any kind of display base. There's no rocking back and forth. It's pretty stable. So I came up with the two-legged version and the foot shell to go with it. So you can just, you know, keeping your costs down, you know, just build a quick little static droid. And I did one last year and I knocked it out in 6 weeks. And I think back, my first droid took me 2 years to make, and I could do it in 6 weeks, you know, dedicated and focused to get the job done. So for me, it was a thing. It's like I got tired of people asking, you know, how do I, you know, how much to buy your droid? And then when you get through the conversation, you just tell them to go buy a sideshow. That doesn't look good, and we all know why it doesn't look good. And it's like, but here we can still have that conversation with somebody in the booth and say, well, there are ways that you can build it that doesn't have to do all these things, and it doesn't use up as much room as a three-legged droid, and it won't fall over. And so I came up with this as a fun thing to do. And, you know, I've got R5 and I'm building an R2Q2 now in the house, just some, you know, just until I'll keep going until my wife tells me to stop. Kids are out of the house, so I have more room now. So, you know, I can get away with that. One of the other things that I've done recently is skins. So, I went too far. About a little over a year ago, one of the other builders had come to me and asked me if I could make them some styrene skins because I believe at the time Frank Pers had, you know, stopped making styrene parts, and he was kind of like, well, I've got a droid halfway in and I still need these parts. So, well, I hadn't done skins before, so I went out and got the blueprints off of Astromech and came up with a tool paths and a file to do all of that. And then as we were talking, I was like, you know, why not just make them single layer? You know, instead of, you know, multiple layer, you don't really want anything to open on it anyway. So, you know, one of my pet peeves about, you know, styrene is it always tended to want to flatten itself back out. And I could always tell when a styrene droid from across the room because the panels were starting to flatten themselves back out. So let's just make it one layer. And I etched in all the panel lines, all the door pockets, and I've got got some sets here in the back. And one of the things that I did when I made the first sets is when you would pick it up and you look at the styrene in the light, you could see all these waves within the pockets of the doors, and where the box that I was using had kind of vibrated or it shifted a little bit. And when you're talking 0.04 thickness, that makes all the difference in the world. A little bit off is massive percentages in material changes. So really wasn't happy with it at the time, and I kind of just put it off to the side, and then, you know, came back up through my rotation of projects. I rebuilt the vacuum box that I was doing, made it a lot thicker, a lot more solid. And, you know, as we were going through it, I was like, you know, one of the things that always bugs me is the pieces, like how do I print a coin return? It's all at 0.04 millimeter or 0.04 inches thick. That's already a nozzle, you know, so it's like I'm not going to get any real strength out of this. So I was like, let's just integrate it into the damn skin, you know. And going back to Greg's, you know, project Fusion 360 project files, the way it's set up, you just turn off that layer, that piece, the front panel, just print the back, and you glue it onto the back of the skin with a little bit of silicone or E6000, and then when you are painting, just mask off, and you can paint the coin return and point the actual pocket itself that's there, and it's there. You know, it's very easy to do. Same thing with the pocket vents is, you know, I took his files and said, okay, I'll take off the front layer, I'll take off the back layer, and I'll just print the center, paint it the same color as I'm going to paint the chrome, aluminum, silver, whatever color you're painting your droid. Paint that all together. When it's done, then I'll take the back plate that I've got, paint it, you know, the right color for that, glue it onto the back, and now I've got a completed pocket vent, and it's strong, it's stable, no masking for any of that stuff. So it made things very easy to do, and tried to look at doing the side vents into it, but I chose not to on that because the side vent would be then the farthest edge of the skins when I wrapped it around, and it would kind of lose its ability to adhere, because with the skins being the sections for the front and the back being hidden behind the legs, you can still get away with putting screws, the top, the middle, and the bottom plates for that. So haven't integrated the side vents in there, but I've got, you know, got the R2 skins, and then when I posted something about it the other day, Hot Wing was asking me if I could do an R7 skin, so I started playing around with that, and so kind of fun, kind of start playing around with that as well. But the idea yet again is it's simple, it's easy, it cuts a lot. I mean, one of the things about a single layer skin is you don't have to cut out every single door and glue it all back together. And if you're not the builder that wants to automate all this stuff and you just want a simple droid that you can drive around, you know, that's a lot of work for something that you're never going to take advantage of. So again, with a single layer, it cuts a lot of work out of building your droid. Lots of time. One of the other things I've been working on is, I think it was sometime last year, James Van Reening of Commando 8 had posted that he couldn't get his welder for all of his aluminum legs had retired or quit or closed shop. I can't remember exactly what happened. And he sold out in like less than 24 hours of everything that he had. And I know he's just now getting them back in stock again, but had a builder ask me if I could adapt my wooden legs for an aluminum ankle. So luckily, one of the other builders local had a set of aluminum ankles that just laying in his parts bin and brought them over. And I took my design and cut it all up. And now I have a wooden leg that you can stick inside of an aluminum ankle. So you can get the strength of that aluminum pivot from the ankle, but you don't have the cost of an aluminum leg, and you can do it with a wooden one now. So, and that's one of the things, you know, for anybody that, you know, when we always tell them research is you look at, well, what does a wooden leg mean versus a aluminum leg? You know, a wooden leg's got the ankles integrated into it, except for the beefy part. But an aluminum one, you've got to get the leg, and then you've got to get the ankle and bolt them together. So here we now have an option to be able to do this. And you can see here in the pics, it's got, you know, the one on the left is a Tex-Mex leg, full one with a 3D printed beefy ankle on it. And the one on the right is the one for aluminum ankle with one of a powder coated aluminum ankle bolted onto it. So those are the parts that you need, and that's how it all goes together. So very interesting layout we did there. Last thing I have, I've started doing with the droid transport sleds. These were originally designed by Chris Reif, Mr. Sparkle, out on the boards. And over the years, I had, you know, a couple people ask me if I wouldn't mind cutting them on my CNC, and sure. And then eventually it kind of got to the point where I had a few all at once. And I reached out to Chris and said, hey, do you have any issue if I put a run out there so everybody can do that? And yeah, sure, no problem. You know, as you know, with a big warning sign that this was designed and built for his droid. So your droid may vary. And we found out specifically really quick where that really impacts the sled. And most of the time, you would think about the angles and the fitment of how all the pieces. And you can see here in this bottom pic of this is Chris's droid. Where how it all kind of goes together with the little tongues here at the bottom, how they fit into the foot shells, and then these pieces here, how they go around the horseshoes. And the issue is on the, and we move to the next slide. If you look at this dimension between my foot shells, this club spec is 21 1/8 inches. And I forget which builder it was. I set one out and it didn't fit. And his dimension was different. And I just so happened to be at a con that weekend. We had a little over a dozen droids, and I just took my tape measure and measured every single one of them, and 2 were the same. And it's like, okay, I got 21 1/8 as a club spec. I had a 100% all aluminum droid was 20 1/2. And they ranged from 20 1/2 up to 21 3/4, and a dozen different measurements that we had. So they are, when I make them, they are made to order. And it's just one thing that I always ask is give me that dimension, because otherwise you're going to get it and it won't fit. And I don't have a tape measure with me, but I'd be curious to start measuring some around here and see how much the variations are out there. And it's like, how does that happen? And I mean, with a Tex-Mex, there are like 5 layers of plywood that make up a leg. And for this dimension, then you have 2 layers of plywood that make the body to leg hub, 2 layers of plywood inside the frame. You start adding all that stuff up, and if there's any real variations, I mean, you start talking like 1/1000th of an inch, that adds up as across all of those different materials. And the same thing happens with aluminum. Same thing happens with 3D printed parts. You know, when you print it, and I can't think of the term right now, but the change and based on what was measured versus what actually came out of your printer, there's always going to be some kind of a variation there, and it does impact that. So one of those neat little things that you come across, no matter how hard we try to conform our droids to a spec, they do change a little bit. So that's it for the droid transport sled. And then just kind of closing out on a couple of things here, just to talk about Tex-Mex. Went too far again. Just some photos of some of the different completed droids that have been out there. There's a few of them here. I know Hunter's is out there and Todd's is out there. Some of the ones that I recognized from what I saw out in the hallway, and builders that I've talked to over the years. So just kind of want to go on that. And then conclusion, just a couple of runs, just to kind of recap on the runs. The frames themselves are $200. The leg kits are $270. The sleds are $275. The legs for aluminum ankles are $230, and then the skins are $150. I do have 2 boxes of a frame and leg kits and 6 sets of skins here. If anybody's interested, you can get free shipping if you buy them at DroidCon, so you don't have to worry about that. Anyway, so with that, I think don't have anything else to cover. I know I got time, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions?
No?
Hang on.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say that I'm absolutely in love with the idea of these skins. It just seems to make so much sense. Like it just, I like how you've integrated the coin slots, and I'm guessing the other pieces could also be cut out of, as many details that are flat could be cut out of that styrene as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the only thing, like I said, the only thing I don't do is the side vent, and that's just because of the when you put the layers, put the fronts and the backs together, that would be your farthest most point to hold the curve. And my fear is that they would eventually come loose.
do you include the side vent as a styrene piece since you're already cutting?
I haven't, but it's a great idea. I can easily integrate that into one of the holes on the sides and put something off to the side for somebody if they want to play around with it and do that.
I just think this is a great affordable option. I mean, you can barely buy enough filament to make that much.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Anyhow, I'm impressed.
Yeah, my like I said, my goal is to really try to simplify the process. I am impressed with all the automations in the code and all the stuff that everybody does, but that is my weakest area of droid building is electronics, and I don't have the patience for code. Even though I work in the IT industry as a day job, I just don't have the patience for a lot of that stuff. And for me, I go for quantity. I just want to see a bunch of droids. I just love that. I mean, I can do one of the biggest things we have when we do our cons is, how many droids are we going to get? We want to be impressive. We want to show force. And it used to be when I started, it's like, man, you would get 10 people to show up and maybe 5 droids, but the other guys were at the club, but they just didn't have anything yet. But now when in Dallas, when we do a con, it's like, well, which droids am I leaving at home? We've got, I have 3 droids that I change out which ones I bring. And then there's other builders that, I don't think anybody in Dallas just has 1 droid. And so now it's about quantity. And I love that because we can really populate, with everybody at their cons are doing some kind of a Galaxy's Edge theme and for their booth. And it's all about the atmosphere and the ambiance and the parts and the droids all over the place. And, if you're trying to throw something together, I've got a Mercedes Sprinter van. It's what I use to move myself around the country. And I put the backdrop, 3 droids, and we've got one. Let's back up a minute. Where is? I don't have a photo of it. I can't believe I don't have a photo of it. Maybe where is it? I've got a photo of it in here somewhere. But me and one of the other guys, we built what we call Char 2D2. It's a grill. There it is. It's on the skin page. So this one here. Damn it. Sorry. This yellow one, me and another local builder, Brian McMeans, built that. It is a frame that got put together backwards early on that the front and the back side plates were reversed and glued, and you can't undo that. So we just sat there, and then we eventually just said, oh, the hell with it, because it works fine in 2-leg mode. That wasn't a problem. So that's actually the first styrene skins I ever did, and weathering covered some of the flaws that I had. But we made Char 2D2 out of it, and it's a grill, and it's got a rotisserie that goes on top of it with salacious crumb that spins. And it's just kind of a fun thing to do. And it's like the feet were my first feet that I had after my MDF ones got crushed, and I tried to build another set. I didn't like them, and I decided to go with Steele instead. So that's what those are. The legs were my first R2 legs that broke. And then the bad frame, and then the cheap skins, and then we bought the grill parts off of Facebook Marketplace, and then just kind of screwed around with some 3D printed stuff that we had to make that. And that's what really kind of put me over the top, because between the 2 of us, that thing was done in 2 weeks. And it was like, holy crap, if we can build a droid that fast, I want to know how long it'll take me to start from scratch. So that's the one on the left was the second one that I did, and that was a 6-week build. So I was really proud of that one. So, yes.
Okay, so when it comes to the skids, is there any possibility of getting a skid that's modified so that you could still have your droid in 3-leg mode, but when you're transporting it on the skins, the dome can stay on?
I think that would be more of an issue about how your dome stays on, because when you lay them over flat, what I still use on my dome is the gravity, with the long bolts that are on there, and you pop it on, and if you lay it over flat, it's just going to fall off. So other than that, I don't know how you
like my dome hits the back panel.
Okay. We could make it taller. We could make the skid a little taller so where there's some clearance. So yeah. Did you get a skid from me?
No.
Yeah.
No.
But no, like if
we printed it off the PDF and taped all the pages together, and
yeah, but like the way where the tabs are that go into the back plate, we could just make that taller to make. I don't know do you know how much room you have for clearance, or how much you'd need?
I'd have to measure it. Yeah.
Well, hit me up on Facebook or whatever, and we'll figure it out and make those parts a little taller so you got clearance. Yeah, good question. I love that. Any other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Ask questions, lots of questions.
Any more questions? Oh, right here. Hang on.
So weight of droids is kind of a big thing, right? Dry, like no extras, no batteries. What's the weight of your kit?
Just for the frame and leg kit is 35 pounds. And then it all matters. The rest of it is, what kind of dome do you have? What kind of skins do you have? That all comes on. But like what I call skater is my SK droid. My mouse. Hold on. Come on. Damn it. Sorry.
You can use the arrow keys. It helps as well.
So this one here, this is what I call Skater, SK8R. He weighs about 60 pounds. And that is a Tex-Mex frame, legs. It actually has aluminum skins on that one, 3D printed foot shells. It has a modified set of scavenger motor holders inside of it. But I've got a different version that now works with the warp drives, so for 3D printed shells. And a 3D printed Baddeley dome on it, but it's like 60, 65 pounds.
Okay.
All right.
Any
Anything
other
else?
questions? Anything else? All right, let's give him a big round of applause.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I believe that is lunch.
Sure.
On your sled, you said that distance between the feet.